Hello, everybody. We are live again. Thanks for joining. This is our third Send Protocol live session. Today we'll be discussing blockchain in developing countries. We're joined by Send co-founder and chief visionary Francisco Cordova, and our guest today is Pranjal Sharma. Pranjal is an economic analyst, writer who focuses on tech, globalization, and media. He's a speaker at the Outstanding Speakers Bureau. He's a member of the World Economic Forum Advisory Board. He helped launch Bloomberg UTV. His new book, Kranti Nation, discusses how technologies like AI, robotics, and blockchain are changing economic development in India. And we're really, really excited to have him join us today for this discussion. And Francisco is an alumni of the Global Shapers and the World Economic Forum, and these guys go way back. I'm going to let Francisco give a little bit of an introduction as well, and we'll jump right into things. My name is Sarah Kate Hart. I'm Communications Director at Send. Send Protocol, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time and just getting to know us, is semi-stable digital money. And we are really excited to be starting these sessions to connect with other leaders in the industry and talk about current trends in terms of blockchain tech, fintech, and digital currencies. So, Francisco, if you want to take it away, it's all you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Pranjal. So, man, a couple of months without seeing you. The first time we met was in China at the World Economic Forum New Champions meeting in Dalian. And I remember that the topic of that year was how innovation could transform developing countries. But right now, one of the hypes is blockchain, and everyone is talking about how blockchain can really help bootstrap and increase the success of developing countries. You have been researching for a couple of years about that. Can you tell us first a little bit about why did you get interested into this topic of blockchain for developing countries?
Well, Francisco and Sarah, thanks very much for inviting me, and I'm very excited to learn about what Send has been doing and planning. And I think that there is a very important need for emerging markets and developing countries to focus on new technologies. Before I speak about blockchain per se, I would like to, underline and emphasize the importance of new technologies. If you've seen economic development globally in the last 2 or 3 decades, the fact has been that we have been very dependent on technologies from the West, the so-called OECD countries, the developed markets. And emerging markets had always had this concept of technology transfer. Can we buy some technology? Can you please give us some so that we can also develop? And there was this transactional relationship between the emerging markets and the developed markets. The technologies of the new fourth industrial revolution that we are discussing, including blockchain, in my view, are very egalitarian. They are distributed across professionals, across countries. They don't know any borders. There is no specific IP or a technology which is owned by any one entity, organization, or a country. It's really the usage and the applications which are developed which allow everybody to do what they feel like, develop the solution for their specific needs in a way that nobody else can dictate to them. So I think this is the context in which I'm sure Send is also working on, where you create solutions for local needs using a technology which everybody has access to. My interest has been in these technologies for exactly this reason. I am an economist, and I've, for better part of 2 decades and more, I focused on international economic relations, WTO, trade issues, multilateral negotiations, etc. And I had seen how the global order was decided by a few countries which set the rules for everybody else. My view now is that these technologies are allowing each country, each organization, each civil society to decide what they want to do and find answers for their own problems. So this is my response to your question on why I'm interested in this. So my interest is not just in blockchain. Blockchain is an important pillar, but my interest is in the new technology platforms which are helping emerging markets find answers for their own challenges.
So Pranjal, but one of the things we have been seeing is that Bitcoin was born in the US. We know it so far, maybe not, but that's what we know. Then Ethereum has growth, and then now the Chinese are the one creating new blockchain. But aren't you concerned that these growths of these innovative countries undermine the possibility for develop their own blockchain project with the community and still happening what we call the Silicon Valley-nization of everything?
Yes, there are a lot of innovations which have begun in US, and blockchain and Bitcoin are among them. So of course, you know that Bitcoin specifically, there are a lot of questions about who's really the owner of Bitcoin and who is the inventor, and there's a group of people. So there is a secrecy around it. But I think blockchain as a concept and as a technology is something which is open for a lot of people to decide how they want to use it. So yes, there is some level of siliconization, Silicon Valleyization of different technologies. But I think the most important part right now is the fact that we have now the opportunity in emerging markets to do things with blockchain that doesn't have to emerge from Silicon Valley. It can be done locally.
And based on your experience traveling abroad, what do you think are one of the most important use case for blockchain? Is still cryptocurrencies, is still security, identification. A lot of people saying that we can vote using blockchain, blockchain for health. Based on your experience, what do you believe is one of the key areas that blockchain could make a really big change in developing countries?
Well, I think there are two parts to this. One, blockchain itself is evolving. The understanding of blockchain is also evolving. It is developing very fast, and sometimes I think that it's developing in a way that a lot of people don't have not been able to keep pace with it. But that's one part of it. Second part is that it is unfortunately seen only in relation to a cryptocurrency. But thankfully, that perception is changing, and people realize that there's so much more that you can do with blockchain than just run a cryptocurrency. And in fact, in some ways, cryptocurrencies for the secrecy and this element of gambling and taking risk on a financial asset that very few people understand is given blockchain. Some level of people are slightly concerned about it. But I have been writing and speaking about the fact that blockchain is more than just cryptocurrency, and that realization is improving in many countries. So the final point is that blockchain has many interesting possibilities, developments. In India, I live in New Delhi. There are several options and projects and pilot ideas which have been rolled out using blockchain. In If we look at issues of land record, health that you mentioned, in terms of banking and finance, several new ideas are being explored and tried out. So there is a understanding that blockchain can do much more than cryptocurrency, and I feel that as we speak, in the next few months, this momentum is going to improve.
So in that sense, you're saying that one of the issues with blockchain and cryptocurrencies is the volatility and speculation of those elements within the cryptocurrency. But at the same time, you're saying, what about mobile banking? And what about if mobile has also changed the world? Could blockchain also change the world as fast as mobile did it, especially in developing countries?
I think so. I think that potential is definitely there. Blockchain can definitely make a very strong impact. It can accelerate growth. It can allow countries and societies to leapfrog over several layers and generations of economic and technological development. The question then is that for that to happen, how do we understand blockchain better? In my view, for blockchain to be able to be used for good in a positive, transparent manner, we have to prepare to understand what blockchain is. We have to create institutional frameworks where blockchain can be introduced as a subject or as a platform at school and college level. Even seasoned, experienced professionals are not very sure about how to use it. I think our education system in many countries is established in a framework which is maybe 20 years old. These emergence of blockchain in the last few years has not been reflected in our preparation for it. By preparation, I mean that are we skilled enough to use it? Have we explored and invested in exploring in what are the new possibilities and solutions that can come out of it? Have we allowed mid-career professionals, students, policymakers to understand what are the advantages? At the same time, there is a lot of questions about the security of blockchain. So while blockchain is seen as a very secure platform where your information is very safe, but there are questions about the input. So because it is open, any information can be placed inside that box, literally, and locked. So once it's locked, it's safe. But what I put into the box, sometimes the quality of that information is not absolutely sure. So uh, there are some weaknesses in blockchain which we also have to work on, and I think that's a debate and a narrative which is moving across the world.
So now a little bit getting into your experience that you go every year to Davos in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum meeting. You're a member of the diverse councils. What do you think is their opinion of the worldwide leaders on these type of technologies for developing countries? Because they have been leading, they are discussing every year how to do it. And especially since the World Economic Forum is promoting the fourth industrial revolution, how do you see that was connected from those advanced countries to the opportunity for developing countries?
In my view, the developed countries are focusing on the technology which is relevant to them. I don't think at these gatherings at Davos and others, there is a view that well, let's get the developing countries to start using these technologies. There is no specific plan, strategy, or a conversation. What is happening though is that, as I said earlier, because these technologies are open for everybody, they have equal access. Um, there is now a realization that the developing countries can have equal access and can move and offer, create solutions for them as easily as for what is required in United States or Europe. So global companies which are trying to enter new markets or to create products and services for new markets uh, are realizing that they can create very local products using these new technologies and don't have to create a technology or a product created for United States which has to be sold in Colombia or in India. So the global corporate leadership, I think, is understanding that they can use these technology platforms, including blockchain, to be very much more precise about the focus they have on the consumers in each of these markets.
Thanks. And Sarah has been exploring more about your book, Kranti Nation. So Sarah, if you have some questions for Pranjal, you have mute, I believe. You're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you. So last year you released a book called Kranti Nation, focused on the fourth industrial revolution in India specifically. And we were reviewing your book over the last couple of weeks, and there are some interesting points that you make about blockchain technology specifically. One thing that you mentioned in the book is that blockchain is the digital version of currency notes. And I think there are a number of people in this industry who would agree that, with the use case of cryptocurrencies, you're looking at digital money. Could that mean that for cash economies, are uniquely suited to adopt blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies?
There is an important point that you make there, Sarah. Just to clarify, the word Kranti Nation, nation, of course, is an English word, but Kranti, the word means revolution. So in some ways, I'm talking about a revolution in the country, and it's a revolution country. We've seen several revolutions already. The white revolution, which made us sustainable in dairy products, the green revolution, which was on agriculture. So, a country as big as India, always there's a revolution going on. A lot of them are positive, thankfully. The point about cash economy and the use of cryptocurrency is critical. in the last few years, under the current government, there has been a very strong push to move away from the cash economy to digital currencies, to cashless economy, if not a cash-free economy, which means that there has been a policy to encourage mobile transfers. Mobile apps and wallets are becoming very, very popular. Even companies like WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, has now started a pilot project of allowing transactions on the platform in some way that WeChat has been doing in China. The government encourages people to use online transfers, mobile transfers. So that movement has begun in great earnest in the last 2 or 3 years. Um, Within this, I think the importance of cryptocurrency comes into a picture. Now, cryptocurrency in the form that you see today, where people buy, they invest it, and then they trade in it, and it is seen only as an investment asset, is one aspect of it. But I believe that blockchain can create some kind of digital currency which can be used for normal transactions, where it's not just an investment asset, but it can be used for daily transactions. So I don't know how close we are to that, but I do also think that we are not too far away. Emerging markets, emerging economies can use blockchain and digital currencies, which includes cryptocurrencies, to help bring many people into the economic mainstream. In India alone, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, you had 300 million people 300 million people join the banking mainstream, which means that these are the people who have opened a bank account. They, whatever they earned, they kept it in cash in their homes, in villages. Now, by having a bank account, they are now open to all kinds of financial transactions which are possible digitally. Now, if we are able to develop solutions using blockchain for these people, I think we have a fantastic possibility emerging. So 300 people have joined, million people have joined, another 300 million people are waiting to join. The increase in the use of mobile and improved telecom connectivity means that you could have 1.3 billion people who have bank accounts, who can be digitally literate and can use digital currencies in the future. So the potential is enormous, and I think solutions like blockchain could give us some ideas about how to make a transformation at this scale. So it's not just for 10 million people, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned that mobile banking is something that has taken hold in recent years. Do you think that that trend is something that we could see replicated with blockchain technologies specifically? And if so, what would that take? I know blockchain technologies kind of have this connotation as being too complex for the average user. What will it take for us to transform blockchain technology into something that is usable by the average consumer?
I think the technology does not have to be, the complexity of technology should not impact the consumer or the user. The mobile phones that we use, the live chat that we are having right now across 2 continents, the technology behind that is complex, but we are using it because the user interface is very simple. So I'm sure there are possibilities in which that use of digital currency on blockchain can be enhanced with simple user interface. And this is the world of UI and UX. So if there is enough opportunity there, I'm sure there will be enough innovation coming in to ensure that the usage is made simple, so that complex technology or the algorithms in the background allow us to do things in a way that does not intimidate us.
And before I jump in with another question about the book, you also were talking about kind of mobile banking and the fact that, in recent years, we've seen this revolution of people becoming connected to financial services who weren't previously connected to financial services. And in that way, they're kind of converting from cash-based economy to mobile banking. Do you think that there is a way for blockchain to allow us to kind of jump past this idea of banking the unbanked? and actually, jump right into a new reality where consumers don't even really need to interact with banks or bank accounts because of blockchain technology?
Yes, I think that is happening already. There are several startups which are in the fintech space in India, which are using blockchain as a platform. And the very exciting thing which has happened is that they have partnered with existing legacy traditional banks to offer solution to mainstream the unbanked, or bring the unbanked into the system. Uh, I can't say, I'm not in a position to say how successful they have been, but I know that they made a great beginning. The fact that young startups who are using blockchain are engaged with older banks to find solutions is a great beginning. A lot of new ideas are being rolled out. Out of maybe 100 new ideas, maybe 20 will work or 10 will work, but the direction, the pace, the intent is very clear that blockchain can make a very important difference to bringing the unbanked into the mainstream in India in a collaborative fashion, where it is not either the small startups or the big companies, but everybody working together for finding a solution.
Sarah, let me jump in. Pranjal, one of the things you're saying is that banks are working with new blockchain startups. We were speaking with Fernando Campos, head of Bank of Finance HSBC, in our live session, and he talked like banks are not afraid of startups. He believes that banks will continue doing their job and they will keep spending and buying startups. Do you see a big change in that way? Do you agree with him, or do you believe a new kind of era is coming?
I think I agree with him mostly. There's going to be competitive forces. These startups have great ideas, but they don't have scale. And I think that's the most important aspect of growth that we have to see in emerging markets. How soon can you go to a level and scale that allows you to reach out to the maximum people? Older banks have network, have distribution, they understand finance much better. They also have the trust of the consumer. So the new companies, when they offer financial services, perhaps the one thing that they lack is trust. Consumers have to trust them. While we are all very, very comfortable with technology, we also are, there is a fear, which brings us to the issue of security, cyber threats, etc. So I think that balance has to come into the picture. But broadly, I agree with your previous expert who feels that there are collaborative forces happening. There are competitive forces in play as well, and I think we need both. We need collaboration, and also we need competition from new ideas. So competition, I would say, is not just about old and new companies. I think competition is also about old ideas and new ideas.
So jumping back into your book for a minute, you mentioned in Kranti Nation that companies dedicated to technological solutions don't necessarily see different countries as different markets. And I think that that's a really interesting point, especially when we're talking about scalable technologies, when we're talking about universal currencies, when we're talking about these technologies that are, in a sense, borderless. Can you elaborate on this idea that different geographical locations, different countries are not necessarily different markets?
So, if you look at the large companies like SAP or Oracle or Microsoft or such companies, they are doing work which is solving a specific issue. So it could be a health issue, it could be diagnostics, it could be, let's say, on human resource technology. So HR tech, how to ensure that companies can manage their own employees much better. Now, these are functional and focused issues. Now, if it works in one country, it will work in most countries. These global companies are running research projects, pilot projects in different parts of the world. If it works in India, it will work in Colombia. If it works in Colombia, it will work in Europe. If it works in Europe, it will work in US. So I think there is an approach, there is a functional approach for the organized corporate world where you're looking for solutions. So that's one aspect. Therefore, they don't look at finding a solution only for one country or the other. The AI platform of Google is looking at health-based solutions, which are about a category of people who have an ailment. So whether those people live in country A or B doesn't really matter. So the point is that increasingly solutions to general challenges are being found. At the same time, within a country, there could be specific challenges. So there is effort to do that locally as well. So there are two levels of innovation happening where large organizations are looking at what can be done globally, and smaller organizations are looking for local solutions for local problems. Again, using new technologies, including blockchain, AI, etc.
Yeah. And that relates to another question that I had actually is, do you think that it's going to be large multinational companies adopting these new technologies like blockchain tech that will be the game changers, or do you think that it's more emerging companies, small startups that will really drive the change and innovation?
You know, the traditional view is that big companies are not innovative. It's the small companies which are innovative. But my view is that it's going to be a combination of both. Large companies have the resources to buy innovation, even if they don't know how to invest in innovation. Small companies have the ability to think in a completely new way and create new ideas, but they don't have the financial strength or the distribution to be able to take it to market. So I would think that there is going to be several examples of either global companies creating an idea or at least buying startups. So in the end, what is important is to have an ecosystem where new ideas and solutions are being constantly created. I don't think whether it's going to be adopted by a large or a small company really matters. I think the idea has to be powerful.
And you also, so you highlight that progress doesn't happen without pain. I think that's something that any innovator, any leader in the space would agree with. What do you anticipate will be the pain that accompanies the progress that we can potentially achieve with a new technology like blockchain tech?
The pain is the narrative, and the debate about pain is really about creating or not being able to create jobs, and about job loss, and about people not being relevant to the functions that they have. If people in the financial functions no longer need to learn accounting, and or just the knowledge of accounting is not enough, then clearly they become irrelevant. They will lose the profile that they have. So that is the pain of change, which has always been there. From the time that every time a new technology comes in, the older one lets go of people, and if you are not agile enough to be in sync with the new technologies at an individual professional level, that becomes the pain point. So many countries are seeing jobless growth. The rise of automation, of course, is creating concerns about not enough jobs being created. So how do people earn a livelihood? How do we earn? There are issues of universal basic income which are being debated. I think the most important point now is that how do we manage this rapid pace of change? And I think the pain will be there, but can we manage this pain? I think that's the critical issue now.
Pranjal, getting back into what you're saying, okay, developing countries need to adopt this type of technologies, AI, gene editing, fast computing, even going to quantum computing and blockchain. What would be your recommendation for new governments that are in developing countries? What do they need to do in order to catch what China is doing, or even what India is doing? The last report just shows that India has the largest GDP growth of the year compared with other countries. So what kind of policies would you recommend a new leader in a developing country to start implementing today, to thinking not only in what you're saying, the Kranti Nation, but also the future development of these type of nations?
So the latest figures from World Bank show that India is placed rank 6 in the world with a GDP of 2.597 trillion. It is ahead of France now. The top five countries by GDP are US, China, Japan, Germany, and UK. And there is a hope that India will soon be able to be in the top five economies of the world as well. The point is that can this economic growth be fueled by technology? There are many countries which are now starting to create policies on how uh, technology can drive change. In many countries, including India, there is a national debate on what kind of AI policy should we have, what kind of blockchain policy should we have. So far, the governments have been reactive because when they don't understand anything, they say that, well, let's stop it until we understand it. And it's happened on cryptocurrency in India, where the central bank and the finance ministry have said, look, for the moment, we don't want any exchange of cryptocurrencies because we don't understand what's going on. And I think that's fair from the point of view of investors and individuals. We are still hurting from the confusion created by the 2008 financial collapse, where a few traders tried to create a system which nobody else understood, and the world suffered for it. So I think with that context, there is caution about cryptocurrency per se. But in terms of policy making, I think there is now a much more open attitude on how technology can be used to deliver government services. Again, artificial intelligence, blockchain based solutions are being increasingly deployed. Policies are being created to ensure that there is enough flexibility in it, but at the same time, it is forward looking to ensure that government can deliver services in the best and most efficient manner.
Great. And Pranjal, now going back to your daily life, like you said, okay, there's a fast changing pace in everything. There's so many information and knowledge being created every day. How do you personally keep updated for what is coming? What are your strategies that someone around the world can start to implement today to optimize their time and to really know what to grab and how to do it?
In one word, read. I would say the more you read, the more you know. I supplement that by the second word is the meet and talk. So in my conversations with Sarah and you right now, I'm also learning, even as I'm sharing some ideas. So I think if you read, meet, and talk to people, you learn a lot, and I think that is something which we have to be constantly aware of. Um, I think to be relevant, it's also important to learn. And I think these three things help you learn. But applied knowledge is equally important. So, one of the important aspects of being uh, ready and prepared for new technologies is that can we look at quick courses or quick learning modules which will help us become more professional? So, I haven't got around to doing that yet, but I think that just reading a lot helps me keep in touch with what's going on.
But the question for anyone will be, how do you choose which books to read? Because I believe it's being created like 10,000 books per day all around the year. So how do you pick them? Do you have like specific lists? Like, do you like the Bill Gates list of recommended books? Do you go to Quora, or do you have like your newspapers that you usually read in order to have books?
So I think the general advice and suggestions I would have is that the big blockbuster titles, books, and the famous people writing is it's interesting to get that perspective, but it's important to know what you want to do and look at content and information which is relevant to you. Uh, it You have to make an effort to do some search. Even if you read something which is not very relevant to you, you can pick up three books. You may not like all of them, but you can like one or two of them. But even if you read a few chapters, you're not going to lose anything. Extra knowledge is not going to hurt you. I think the best way to choose what you want to learn is to identify the topics that interest you, identify the themes that are important to you, and identify what you think you should become better at in the near future. And if you identify those, then if you keep your eyes open to those issues, then it somehow happens that everything that you see around you pops up with that relevance. So when you want to only look at the color yellow, everywhere you look around, you see yellow. So if you say that I'm only interested in blockchain, then in every conversation you will see blockchain. So I think that's the best approach to have.
Nice, Sarah. I believe we have one last question from the public via our Twitter channel, YouTube, or Telegram.
Yep. And this question is about the term disruption. I love this question, actually. So thank you for submitting this. This came from Twitter. In what ways do you see people misusing the term disruption? We're in an industry where everybody's talking about disrupting this part of the market or that part of the market or creating a new disruptive technology. What, in your opinion, does it really mean to be a disruptor? And in what ways do you see people misusing this term?
So first point is that disruption is not new. It has been there for maybe 5,000 years. Every change is a disruptive change. There is no change. If it doesn't change, if any development does not make a difference, then it's not disruptive. And change by definition is disruptive. So to feel that disruption just occurred now, I think is not fair. Even when Apple was created or IBM was created, that was disruption. It was disrupting our way of working. When we started using a keyboard instead of a typewriter, that was disruption too. So I think disruption is happening all the time ever since civilization has enhanced. I think the difference which we must understand is the speed. The speed of change is faster. Therefore, you use the word disruption more often, and sometimes you use it in a way that people don't even realize it. So it's, the other cliche is that change is a constant. I think disruption is close to the same level of being a cliche. I think disruption is not necessarily also a negative thing. Disruption means that something which was old and not relevant is changing to something which is better and more efficient. So I think people should understand that change will always be there. Disruption is not necessarily that I break something which is wonderful and I create something which is terrible. Disruption is just a process in which progress happens, change happens. The pain aspect of that is perhaps what has to be attached to the word disruption, that yes, change will happen, something negative will be resulting out of it, some positivity will result out of it. How do we ensure that the pain is minimized, and how do we ensure that the positivity is enhanced? I think that, if we keep an eye on, will help us understand disruption better.
Awesome.
Thank you, Pranjal. So I think this is the end of this session. Pranjal Sharma. And remember, everyone, the hashtag that we're using for these programs is Bank of the Future. So you can leave our comment, ask any questions to everyone. And Pranjal, thank you very much for being with us. And we'll see you someplace around the world in one of the meetings.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you so much, Pacho.
Thank you, Pranjal. Take care. And for those of you who weren't able to join us live, for those of you who were able to join us live, thank you. And it's great to have you here with us. And if you weren't able to catch this live, we'll keep the recording up. And we hope that you enjoy this as much as we did. So thanks so much, Pranjal, and we will see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.